But how I got started with INSOURCE was that I have 3 children, and my youngest was born, when he was born, he had a stroke. And he actually was considered to be multiply disabled through the school corporation. But what ultimately is his disability is the autism and the cerebral palsy. He is 20 years old and graduated from high school with a diploma and is out in the workforce. He has his own job and makes his own money. I mean, he still lives at home, has actually a little tune he says of ever leaving, but that's okay. You know, one day he'll find somebody and go, bye. But anyway, he's how I got started with this. I had never in my life had been with a family member that had any sort of disability. I just was kind of clicking through life and, you know, didn't know anything. When he was born, I knew that it, you know, pretty much changed our life. And matter of fact, the preschool teacher said you just need to put him away and just go on with your life. None of you know me very well, but I'm not that kind of a person, and you know, I dig in and you find out what you're going to do in life, and your life changes. They teach us a lot, and he did. But I always say that he earned his diploma, he earned it hard, and you know, there was a lot of tears down the road, but I wouldn't change a thing other than maybe making life a little bit easier for him. But now, having said that, you know, he's transitioned, he's an adult, and you know, that's what we're here tonight, is we're going to talk a little bit about transitions to adulthood. And when we talk about transitions, it can be from preschool, it can be from, you know, elementary, it can be from high school, and it can be from adulthood. Because actually there's a lot more transitions than what people really want to think. My coworker Jody is here. Sometimes we try to collaborate, because what one person maybe forgets, the other person remembers. So it's really kind of helpful. We have kind of teamed up. I don't know if you know that much about INSOURCE, but over the last year we've had a lot of growing pains. We've had a lot of growth. We now have a new director. Our old director has retired. But we've kind of gotten a different model, and we're trying to support not only our families, but also each other. So a lot of times you'll see 2 or 3 of us together, just trying to make sure that we support each other. INSOURCE was established in 1976 and has been the Parent Training Information Center since. And in every single state in the United States, there has to be a Parent Training Information Center. That's just one of the things the federal government has put in. And so INSOURCE has been the person that's had that for all of these years. We go to case conferences. If parents need us, we can just do phone support. We can do just meeting you at the coffee shop and, you know, kind of going through things. We're there to support the parent, to make sure that the parent gets the information that they need, and so that they have that, because knowledge is power. And you know, I say, even if it's just a little sliver of knowledge, you've got enough power there, and it's, you know, keep moving forward. But anytime you need any assistance, you can call any of our offices, you can call our main office, whatever support you would need as a family. I'm going to let Jody say a little bit about herself, and then we're going to kind of jump into everything.
I have been with INSOURCE for a year and a half. I work on the DRS Project, which unfortunately will be ending the end of June. Actually, the end of July, sorry. We're back into July. Which has been a really great opportunity for INSOURCE to partner with the BEADS office, with Voc Rehab, First Steps, in order to kind of bring some light into our state office of what INSOURCE really does, and help families know more about the waiver, know more about Voc Rehab Services, and just really be able to help you too, but help them to understand. And I've been very fortunate with the office. I work in District 4, to be able to develop a real working relationship with them, where they give me referrals, I give them referrals. So it's really been positive. And even though we're not leaving because INSOURCE did something wrong with the grant, we're leaving because the state needed that money to be able to do WIOA. And so with that, that partnership's still going to be there with the state. I know the office I work in, we're still going to collaborate. In fact, I have a referral sitting in my email that I got on my way here from one of the BEADS reps, and it's really great and really positive. So I really look forward to working with that still, and we even plan on having a month lunch every single month just to be able to touch bases. And I'll still be going to some of their meetings. Like Jill said, we either have son or a daughter or a family member. My nephew Colson has a disability. It has to do with processing. So the easiest way that I explain this to everyone is that I can't ask Colson to do steps. As in, Colson, will you pick up the toy, will you put it in the basket and put it on the shelf? I can't do it like that. I have to say, Colson, will you pick up the toy? Colson, will you put the toy in the basket? Colson, will you put the basket on the shelf? And that has been something that we've all had to adapt with him. But with his schooling, he's in Kentucky, so it's a little different than Indiana. But we've seen so much progress with him with school. He's grown by leaps and bounds. In fact, he got an award at the end of the school year, and he was so proud because his brother ended up getting the highest fifth grader award, and Colson always feels like he's not getting anything, and he ended up getting an award, and he was like the best, it was like so exciting. But to see the progress. And his teachers understand, and he has an aide. It's not a one-on-one, but he has an aide that works with him quite often. And she has said that the steps that he has taken from here to here to remember, especially in reading and math, it's amazing. So I've seen some differences in him, besides just picking up toys and doing that. Challenges cleaning his room, and that's what, as the auntie, that I get to do, and I love that because he and I bond and have fun doing that. I'm not just the one that goes, I'm not his mom saying, go clean your room. I'm the auntie that comes in and goes, okay, I'm going to help you. What are we going to do? And that's how I've always been. Working with Jill, like she said, we're trying to do a partnership. We're in a collaboration cluster, and they're making it into a team model now. But working with Jill is amazing, and she has supported me so many times and just come alongside me that I was so excited when she says, you want to help me today? And I was like, yeah. So, and I'll travel, and I love to travel. So that's part of the job too, is just getting to go places, and I love INSOURCE. Helping families is what it's all about, and there is no question, nothing that we probably haven't seen or heard, and if we haven't, we'll find the answer and we'll get it for you. But that's what we want to do, is help the partnership with the schools and developing that relationship, because that's what it's about.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, and with every INSOURCE, you're going to see the same disclaimer here. It's always going to tell you that the information that we are providing for you, this is just information. If you need to seek an attorney, please, I would advise you to seek an attorney. A lot of things can change. Right now, we're in a change with Voc Rehab, so there's going to be some changes with that. So right now, the information that you received today is the information for today. Okay, so it may change down the road. Go ahead. We're going to talk about transition to adult life, and like I said earlier, when you talk about a transition, it's not necessarily the same transition that, from adulthood to, from high school to adulthood. It can be from preschool to the elementary to the middle school to high school. Whenever we talk about that transition, and whenever we're sitting there in those case conferences, sometimes we're asked questions and we're kind of, it's not that we're taken off guard, but it's just sometimes things that we haven't thought about maybe real deeply. So here are some things that you really want to think about. And if you have little ones, up to ones that are in high school, ones that are getting ready to go out. Working in a desirable job, do you see that? Is that a goal that you maybe have for your child? And I always tell people, do not squelch a parent's dream. If you have a dream that child is going to be able to go to school and to, have a job, well, okay, we need to look at that. Because if that's your dream, and then as they mature and they get older and that's their dream too, don't not keep thinking about that. Because sometimes there are ways around getting jobs that really mean a lot to them. So think about what kind of a job they would be doing. Are they going to go on to school? Will they go on to a vocational college? Will they go on to a college? You know, what is it they're going to be looking at? You know, it can be anything from Ivy Tech to, you know, it could be going to Ball State. It just depends on what that vision is that you have for them. Living in the community. What kind of community contributions are there? I will tell you that you're talking to a parent here that has always said from the get-go, I just want my son to be an active participant in society. That's all I ever wanted for him, to make sure that he was that participant. And when I say an active participant, I want him to be in the community. I want him to be going out. I don't, you know, it's not that I want everybody to know him, I just want him to be able to navigate in the community. Enjoying leisure and recreation activities. What do they enjoy doing? What do you as a family enjoy doing? What kind of recreation activities are you doing as a family? What kind of recreation activities is your child doing? Have a life and enjoying it. And you know what, that's the big key right here, is sometimes we forget to enjoy life. Sometimes we just stop. And that's okay, but we also need to be able to remember that, you know, life does keep moving on. And so we have to find whatever itty-bitty caveat there is of life and being able to enjoy it, grab it, okay? We want to talk about what it takes to make it possible, realistic outcomes. Okay, so you know, an oriented and quality education. When I first started, I knew that my son, with all the paperwork, with all the doctors we've seen, with everything, I knew he wasn't going to be a rocket scientist. I'll tell you right now. Whenever they told us that the stroke took out part of his ability to do math, that kind of takes out some things. Not that he doesn't do math. Passed his algebra, he passed his ECA, but we knew that was really pushing things along for him. So we knew he wasn't going to be a rocket scientist, but I knew that he was going to be able to do other things. So I wanted to make sure that we had realistic outcomes. What were, you know, to keep myself grounded and to keep him grounded as well. And the quality education. That's where you're going to look at when you're talking in the case conferences, when you're talking about their education, you know, quality versus quantity. And sometimes whenever you have a child that, you know, it may be that they need to be on a half a day. It may be that they're going to be homebound. You have to look at what that quality of that education is that they're receiving. Is it what's in their best interest? Is that the best for them? Okay? Because I can sit here and tell you that, you know, I wanted my son to go to Harvard, or I wanted him to go to, you know, IPS because I thought that was best. Well, that's what I thought. I had to take a step back and look and go, okay, realistically, what is in his best interest? What does it look like for him? Because I know what I want, but what do I have to realistically look for him? The opportunities to interact with peers. You know, in the state of Indiana, across the United States, that our kids have the right to be with their peers. How is it going to look whenever they are with our peers, with their peers? You know, those opportunities, whether it be in the extracurricular activities or whether it's with them in their art, music, PE, whatever, at lunch, whatever that is, they have a right to be with those peers. They have a right to be sitting there and learning the same as they do, but sometimes we know it's not going to happen. They can't be with them all the time. But they do have that right. And that's, you know, again, it's kind of one of my soapboxes. If they have the opportunity to be with their peers, then they need to be with them because they do learn. They will pick up things. You know, it is what it is. Develop social skills and connections. Those social skills are extremely important. We know that. We know that they have to have those social skills because a lot of our kids will not have the same social skills. My son, I will tell you, and you'll hear me refer to him a lot tonight because he's what I have. His social skills are nil, and he doesn't have a problem telling, you know, I'll never forget when he told me I was fat. You know, there was no filter there. You know, not that anybody didn't need to know that, but that's what he told me. And so those social cues, those social things that they get, we need to make sure that they're getting those opportunities and that they're getting those connections. Whether it be in a social skills class, whether it be, and just social skills, being out with other kids. Information on all adult options. As you sit here and you're an adult, what options do you have as an adult? When you were graduating from high school, what options did you have? Those are the same options that our kids can have. We know that there could be a little, twist in the road for that, but they do have the same opportunities that we did. It might look a little different. Again, if you're looking at going to college, it's not unusual for any of our kids to go to college. It may be one class at a time. It may be that they absolutely enjoy being in a college in a dorm. It just depends. And that's where a lot of the stuff about when we talk about transition and making things possible for them is we have to look at it as realistic. We have to look at what they can do. Okay? Support services for independence. What kind of support services? Do they need somebody that's going to be living with them? Do they need to be living in some sort of group home? What does their independence look like? Can they live on their own? And these are things that whenever you start those transition paperwork, those surveys that the kids fill out, whenever they go to fill those out, they'll be asked questions on living on their own. And it's like they asked my son if he knew how to fry an egg, and he said no. I said, you absolutely do know how to fry an egg. He goes, well, I wouldn't do fried an egg myself. And I said, well, but you know how to do that. So whenever they have those questions and all that, make sure you as a parent, you read through those, or you have them say, well, he does know how to do this, or she does know how to do that. Because when we talk about the independence, they're usually a lot more independent than we realize. And I was accused of, mothering and hovering, and I did. The current status after high school. These are astounding to me because right now, this was in 2011, 36% live independently. That's with a spouse, partner, or roommate. Okay, 36%. So you're talking, 70-some% that's where are they? Okay, 3% live semi-independently, a dorm, military housing, or group home. Okay, that's not a lot. When you think about a dorm, that's only maybe 3% of our kids that have to go to college. 71% employ full or part-time. That's great because this number here, a few years ago, wasn't even close. This was horrible. So now with both rehab and having all of those components that we have that we can put into place, our kids are being more employed. 55 completed vocational business or a technical school. This is great. 45% of the kids then didn't. And that 55, I'll take 55. Because at 55%, that means that this number here is going to be going up. Because with this, they're going to get jobs. So it says here, compared to the 63% of the students without disabilities. 63% of the students without disabilities, they didn't complete their vocational or business or technical school. That's just astounding to me because that means there's 63% of the kids that didn't have disabilities that are just out there flying by the seat of their pants. 29% completed a 4-year college. 29% out of the kids compared to the 42% without disabilities. 29% of our kids now can go to college. 29% of our kids completed that 4-year college, and guess what? This number here still keeps going up because they're employable. So there is hope. There is. Don't ever let anybody tell you that because you have a child with a disability, that their job, is going to be limited. That's not true because we know statistics are moving up on the kids. We know that there is all sorts of things that we can help put into place for them. Transition planning. You're going to talk about employment, community living, recreation, leisure, and post-secondary education training. So where is this all going to fall whenever you talk about that transition planning? You want to make sure that you have, just like we said in the beginning, have some sort of an idea of what you want that employment to look like. What, is it going to be? Again, here's an example. If you have a child that loves to work for a that would love to work for a veterinarian, they want to go to a vet school, and you honestly know that there's no way that they would be able to complete that course. Well, you can, instead of saying, no, you can't do that, let's see if we can't do some sort of job in there. Let's see if we can't do some sort of volunteer work. What can we do to get that child in that situation? It's kind of like a basketball player. Kids, you have kids that really, they want to be basketball players, firemen, policemen. Well, those are all well and good, but if they can't achieve that, they sure can be doing stuff within that area. That there are jobs that don't take college educations to do. It's like being a policeman. There's jobs in that course that they can do, because it's not just being a policeman. It could be from where they have to detail the cars. It could be from where they have to just be in the office doing paperwork or, filing things. So there's always a way that we can look at a job, okay? And it really, and again, this is because I get really excited, don't ever let them tell you you can't, because there's always room, okay? We just have to look outside the box and look a little different. We talk about community living. They may have to have some sort of assisted living, but it doesn't mean that they can't be out in that community and navigating through it. Recreation, leisure is the same thing. You just have to keep your eye on what you think is in their best interest. And that post-secondary education and training, what does that look like? What does it look like for them? Okay? And again, it's going to be on what is in their interest. They're going to focus on your services, the student's strengths, preferences, and interests. So again, now we're going to talk about what that student's going to be able to input. That student's strengths. And every time you go to a case conference, they're going to talk about the student's strengths. They're going to ask you, what do you think the strengths are? The teachers are going to have their input on what they think the strengths are. But you know what it's going to come down to? You need to ask your child or your student, what do you think your strengths are? What do you think you're good at? And let them answer that. And you know what? If it starts to turn negative, turn it around, because every single person has some sort of strength, and you have to capitalize on it. And what is their interest? Again, maybe they're interested in, reading sports magazines. Okay, that's their interest. What can we do to gear all of their services into that magazine? What do we have to do? The higher education or vocational training. Some kids want to go, some kids don't. And, it's going to come down to, between the parent and the child, what you feel like is, again, what's in their best interest. Because if they want to go into higher education and you absolutely think they can, then give them that opportunity. Employment, they may want to move into the employment. And like I said, what is their interest, their strengths, and their interest? How can we tap that into a job? Adult services. You may think about adult services we have whenever we can go to through Voc Rehab. There's adult services through there. They can help them as of today. Next week might be a different story. Adult services and Voc Rehab, they can help them get their driver's license if it's a necessity. They can help them with their college if it's a necessity. They can help them with any sort of technology if it's a necessity. They can, like with my son, they helped him on job interviews because he didn't know how to do a job interview. And when you have a child that doesn't have a filter, it's not real good to not know how to do a job interview, because you never know what's going to happen. They can help them with resumes, helping them to send feelers out to what they might want to be working at. It just depends on what they need. When we talk about adult services, it could also be that they need somebody that's like an aide, but it's more of in a group home. They have a person that's with them. Community participation. We want them to be able to participate in the community. What is it that's surrounding them? What is that's, in my area, it's very rural, but, as far as community participation, it was, going to the fairs, participating, we have the first Friday of every month, we have something that's on our square, so we always tried to make sure we took him so that he could be out in the public and be able to see what other people do. So it just depends on where you're at and what kind of participation you have. It can even be a volunteer program. Again, let's go back to maybe like the humane societies or any sort of nonprofit organizations that would need any sort of help. There's a community participation that they can be in as well. You also want to think about that graduation or that school exit date. So when we talk about graduation, are they going to graduate with their class? Is that something that's going to be done? Or are we going to be looking at them being in school past or up to their 22nd birthday? That 22nd birthday, that day they have to be out of the school. So we know that we can do that. So we need to think about that. Is that something that's going to happen? And what's that going to look like? Again, we need to be thinking about those social relationships. When we talk about being with those social relationships, they need to be able to participate with just a one-on-one conversation. Because, going to the grocery store is a one-on-one conversation. How is that going to look for them? It's all well and good whenever I'm standing there with my son, but I also know that he doesn't do the eye contact very well. And whenever people try and kind of kid around with him or anything, it's very difficult because he doesn't do the eye contact. So we've had to learn and teach him when he goes to swipe his card, hi, how are you? So there's different things that you do that we take for granted. I mean, whenever I go to the grocery store, there's things I just take for granted. You pass people, hi, how you doing? And for them, it's not the same way. So we really have to look at those social relationships. Whenever they're little, when we're talking about little guys and middle school and high school, they're in a social situation because they're right there in the thick of things in the school. But once they leave and they come home, and if they're going to live at home, we have to kind of look at that. Going to the grocery store, going and putting gas in a car. I had no idea it was going to be that difficult. Okay, and he's had his license for a month now. But it just amazes me how I forgot to tell him how to pump gas. It was just something that I just assumed everybody knew. Mom, the tank's on empty. Well, put gas in it. Well, I don't know how. Well, what do you mean you don't know how? You didn't show me. Okay, I'll meet you at the gas station. And you know what's funny? There is nobody at a gas station anymore that would come out and help you. You can't just pull up to a gas station anymore. So it wasn't so traumatic for him, but it was really traumatic for me to go, oh no, I didn't teach you how to get gas. Self-advocacy, that is huge. They have got to learn to be able to talk for themselves. They've got to be able to stand up for themselves. And it needs to start early. And if it's just giving them the information that they have in their IEP, that was one of the things that, being able to say, okay, Riley, in your IEP, you're supposed to go to the resource room and you're supposed to take your test. This is not an option. This is what you will be doing. And whenever I'd done that, it was trying to make sure that he would be able to stand up and say, I need to go to the resource room to take my test. That was my way of starting that self-advocacy. And as he got older and started to gain control, but not really control of his IEP, I gave him more information on what he was supposed to do. If he came home from school and said, there was a problem at school or something, we always talked it through, but I had him go back to school to try and fix the situation before I stepped in. Because believe it or not, he knew what I did for a job, and he said, can't you go in and tell him? No. You're going to do this on your own, and then I will go in and help you. But you have to be able to stand up on your own. And it really is, it's scary, and it's kind of pushing them, but they have to do it. Because there's always going to be somebody, there will be somebody that will try and take advantage of them. And we can't have that. It's like just getting the exact change back at the grocery store. Being able to say, you didn't give me the right change. Oh yeah, I did. No, I need the right change back. Transportation needs. Are they going to get a driver's license or their public transportation? In my area, there was no public transportation. We're very rural. The boy's 20 years old. I got ready to go on vacation in May for the first time in 8 years, and I said, you will get your driver's license before I go on vacation. I'm not gonna drive you to work no more. He'd had this was his second permit that he had, and I said, I'm done, you have to do this. And believe it or not, the Friday before I went on vacation, he got his driver's license. It was the happiest day of my life. We both danced out of the BMV. And now he will tell you, because whenever I ask him, I said, are you glad you're driving? He goes, it feels great. I can drive myself to work. I can drive home. I can go through the drive-through. That's all I wanted. So you need to be thinking about that. Are they going to be driving? Are they going to have public transportation? And I will tell you, the driver's license, there is so much that's changed in the years that, yeah, you just have to get there and then hope and pray that right now it's you take the written test and then you go take the driver's test. And then if you pass all that, you get your license. But yeah, there's a 6-month waiting period, so please do your research. Social Security eligibility. Are they going to apply for Social Security? Are they eligible for that? This is something that is absolutely a personal decision between you and your child, okay? Because you do have to apply for this. You have to go to their doctors and everything else. So, and the part of the transition is if you're going to have them on that Social Security as an adult, okay? Sure, go ahead.
Do you have advocates that work for INSOURCE that will do that with somebody?
No, we do not. But
You know of like the agencies that, like I don't like to do that.
right.
To be honest with you, I prefer not to help people with that. Do you know of an agency that?
About special kids, ask. I know they help with waivers. I don't know if they help with the Social Security or not, but that's a phone call that you can make to them. Okay. We don't, because we are all just Article 7. Our job is to try and educate the parents on that special education process. Okay.
At what age are they eligible? I have social security.
It can start at birth. Yeah, I mean, it can start at birth. It just depends on what kind of a disability it is, and because it goes on the severity of the disability. I have some kids that their parents had them on Social Security and they had severe learning disabilities.
But as long as they're in school, they're not. Is that correct?
They can be if they're in school. It just depends upon how severe that disability is. Okay. Because there's a lot. We could have tried to apply for it for my son with the autism and the stroke and the cerebral palsy and everything, but I just didn't want time to not until I knew for sure that was kind of the last dog was dead type of thing. But yeah, from birth they could start getting it. Okay. Other considerations, will they just need a state ID card? Instead of getting a driver's license, will they just need an ID card? And sometimes parents will get that ID card early on just so that they have it. If you have a son, they have to sign up for that selective services no matter what, okay? At 18, they've got to get it done, and you can do it online. You have to do it. Just don't fool around with the government. Voter registration, do you want to sign them up to be a voter, or do they have a say-so in that? The Medicaid waiver, are you going to apply for the waiver? Is there any part of that that you need help with as far as trying to navigate through that? And that question, Jody can answer, because she does the waivers and things. Will they need health care or insurance options? Are they going to stay on your health care as a parent, or are they on Medicaid, or what are they going to be looking at? If they're on the waiver, then they have the Medicaid insurance, right?
Yeah, if you have a waiver, you have to file.
Okay. Guardianship. Guardianship is something that a lot of people really don't like to talk about, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you have a child that you even think at the age of 18, you will need it, you get it now. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because at the age of 18, all of their rights transfer to them. If you go to a case conference and they're 18 years old, your son or daughter can look at you and go, I don't want you here, out. and legally they can do it. If they go to school and they're 18 and they decide they don't want to go to school anymore, guess what? They don't have to go to school anymore. They can sign themselves out. They're 18. What I would suggest is that if there's any possibility that you think that you're going to have any sort of educational guardianship, any sort of money guardianship, you get to a lawyer, you get to somebody that can help you with that. And inside your folders, there is a flyer that's on guardianship, okay? And it's not something I really want to scare you about, but I've been in several situations where the kid has turned 18 and he says, I don't want to go to school. And the parents have no more rights. And it's sad because then everything's done. You know, schools are supposed to have a meeting with the child to make sure that they understand what the ramifications are of leaving school without a diploma. And not that I'm going to sit here and tell you that all schools are bad, but there are some schools that are just, you know, okay, well, it's just kind of the nature of the beast. Now, I'll tell you that my son turned 18. His birthday was on the 15th of May. He turned 18 and graduated the 24th of May. And I told him I said, you do crazy. I mean, that was just pretty much what it was. And he's like, okay, Mom. But you have to know me. You just got to be careful. You really have to know your kid, because I'm telling you what, that was probably the longest 10 days of my life, thinking, oh, if he does anything, I will beat him to death. I'm like going to jail. Anyway, so these are going to be the other considerations in that transition that you're going to want to. Self-determination. Sometimes our kids think that they do have the ability to control their own destiny. And when I say to control their own destiny, they are going to be that fireman. They don't care. They're going to do it one way or the other. And that's okay. But we need to make sure that they do understand that there are some things and there are some limitations. You know, it just really kind of depends upon where they're at with that. And, you know, I talked a lot in generality, but that's really what this is, because each child is an individual. You know, if they're going to control their own destiny, that's great. That means that their mind is really thinking and they're really pushing along. But those of us as parents are going, oh, he cannot become a fireman. He will not make it as a fireman. I know he's going to get on that ladder and go, I can't get down. So, you know, there's things that we have to make sure that they realistically do understand. That self-determination can also mean taking responsibility for one's own life. And that really means that whenever they start to talk about, you know, getting that job, they are taking responsibility for their life. But we need to make sure that they understand, along with getting that job, is the hygiene that goes along with taking that shower to get that job. That means that getting up at 8 o'clock and getting to work on time. That means, you know, that they have to take a lunch break, that they have to come home, their money goes in a deposit. So, I mean, they have to understand, and this is a lot of teaching them. And this is a lot of stuff that we just kind of take for granted. But we have to make sure that they have this. Learning to solve problems. Mom, I don't know how to pump gas. Okay, we'll figure this out. You know, I'll be there to show you how to do it. But that's a problem. You know, one of the things was my son, he called me from work and goes, I don't know where the restroom's at. I don't know where to go eat lunch. And I said, can't help you, never been in that building. I said, you need to go find somebody and just ask. I said, just follow somebody around and see what it is. And it's a huge warehouse. And, you know, a little while later he called and said, oh, I found it. He said, you know, it wasn't that hard. And I said, okay, well, good. You had to figure it out on your own. And that was part of that problem solving. Making those informed choices. That's hard because, you know, a lot of times they don't have the information they need right then and there. And so we as parents, we have to give them as much as we can before they trek out on their own. Again, it's just one of those things that you're just going to have to, when you get there, you get there. Managing the consequences of those decisions. One of those things would, I always talk about is that bank account. They have the bank account, most everybody has a bank card now. We have to show them how to make sure they're balancing their budget, make sure they're not, balancing they don't have insufficient funds. Another thing is medicine. And I had a very dear friend that we just didn't think about it. Her daughter, she was never taught about her medicine, how to refill it, when to take it, nothing, because Mom had always set everything out. And so whenever she got out her own, she ran out of medicine. Well, nobody knew that she had ran out of medicine. She got pretty sick because she needed it. And so Crystal and I kind of cried. It was kind of traumatic for me too, because nobody taught her that part of life was getting her prescriptions filled. So, we're going to have to do it. That's not something that I have to do with my son, but he does have a list of his doctors. And so whenever he got his phone, I just said, okay, here's your doctors. You have to make your own appointments and stuff. But it's things like that we forget about. But the consequences of those decisions, they have to be ready for. It's like those insufficient funds. Well, it just doesn't automatically just keep growing in there. And making sure that they have those medicines. They have to be responsible for those things because they are adults. And that's all going to fall under that self-determination. And again, you're each individual child. And you know where they're going to fall with all of those things. Self-advocacy. Okay, you've already heard me. Making those decisions, they need to be able to make those decisions. They need to be able to stand up for themselves and say, absolutely not, that's not how much I'm supposed to get paid by the hour. I know I'm supposed to get more. How do I get that information? I know whenever I signed that contract to come to work here, it had a certain amount of money in it. Okay? Finding out who will help. Where did he need to go? He needed to go to the human resource person. So these are all things that they knew where they were at. Equal right or educational rights. Absolutely. If you have a child in school, they should know what their educational rights are. They should know that they should be with their peers if they can be. They should know that they have the same opportunities that who's ever sitting next to them. That's not a lot of kids know that. Not a lot of kids really even care about it. But they need to know, our kids need to know that they have those rights. And we as parents, sometimes we don't even know what their rights are. We have to do our own reading and research to find that. Problem solving, again, they need to know how to problem solve. And they're not going to, you guys, I know that there's kids that are not going to be able to problem solve, but they need to be able to at least come to somebody and say, I need help. I need to be able to get through this. And that goes along with the communication. They need to be able to, however they communicate, they need to be able to say, I need help. Because at some point, they're going to need help. Their interest and their preferences, they're going to have to be able to say that. And, whenever we start filling out all these papers and everything, they have to have that, be able to say that. We need to know what those are for them. They need to learn how to express their own opinions. Instead of, again, bad mom, shh, I'll do it, shh, I'll do it. No, they need to be able to say, Mom, I don't want to take that class. I want to take this class. Okay, you just, all right. But they have a right to their opinion. They have a right to be able to stand up and say, that's not what I want, or that's not how this is supposed to go. They should be able to gather information, so we should be able to tell them where they can gather that information on whatever they're asking the questions about. Is it a job? Is it on school? Is it on something in life? Is it on how to figure a bank check? Is it how to, do something in an English class? We got to give them help for that. They need to actively participate in case conferences. Absolutely. Have your child, and I'm not saying they have to sit through the whole thing, because if you call me and say, Jill, I need for you to come to the case conference, will you come? I'll say, sure, I'll be there. And they'll say, well, I'm going to have little Johnny in the case conference. Oop, hang on. absolutely he needs to be in the case conference. But if there's going to be anything negative, anything derogatory that's going to be said about him or her, no. They can come in before or after. Because you know what? There's enough stigma to it. They need to be able to hear those positive things. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not saying that everything is sunshine and roses, but sitting in a case conference, whenever you hear, they can't do this, they can't do this, they can't do this, they didn't do this, they didn't do this, and whenever that child is sitting there going, well, then why bother? I don't want them to hear that. I would like for them to come in whenever there's a more positive role here, and where they can say, absolutely, I want to go do this. I want this class because I'm really interested in it. So they need to participate, but only at certain times. When they start to approach that junior, senior year, they're probably going to have to hear some of those things. They're going to have to be a participant in that. But you know what? We can kind of block that sometimes. Exercise those choices. You know, what kind of classes do you want? You know, and this is more of whenever they're in the high school. You know, what do you want to take? You know, we know that there's that core that they have to take, but they always have those other classes that they can take. You know, is it going to be band? Is it going to be, you know, art? What is it that you're interested in? Dare to dream. Everybody has a dream. Everybody's entitled to that, even our kids. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And don't let anybody tell you that they can't dream or we as parents can't dream, because we have that right. The Rehab Act. The Rehab Act has been enacted so that it can help people with disabilities. It has a commitment to the people with disabilities. It states that disabilities is a natural part of human experience and does not diminish the rights of an individual. And it emphasis is on informed choices, and it's reauthorized every 5 years. The Rehab Act absolutely is what started everything. Without that, you would not have a lot of your workforce protections without that. It is every 5 years it comes up for reauthorization. Sometimes it changes, sometimes it doesn't. But the biggest thing is it does not diminish the right of an individual because they have a disability. And never forget that, because as every person with a disability has rights. That's the bottom line. Okay? And it also talks about those informed choices, because everybody has a right to choice. Everybody has a right to all those things. The Rehabilitation Service Commission, it works in partnership with Voc Rehab, and that is the one, again, as our kids get to be that high school age and they're ready to transition out, they're probably going to be talking to a Voc Rehab counselor. The majority of the members are individuals with disabilities, and that is correct. It can be from a severe disability down to there's nothing that's a minor. It could be anything. From a learning disability, it could be from being, like I said, severely disabled. The representatives from the state and the Parent Center and the DOE are required. So all of these people are required to take part in this Rehab Act, because it is required. So we have somebody in the state that is there. We have somebody at the Parent Center, which is us, that goes and sits in those Rehab Act commissions, and the Department of Ed. Yes, dear?
So if people aren't in school, how can they access did you say Voc Rehab counselor or something would go and meet with them in the public school?
Voc Rehab, even if they're not in school, you can still get a hold of them. Yes, absolutely. They will help.
You can refer yourself
Yeah.
to Voc Rehab.
Yeah.
Anybody can refer. You can call up Voc Rehab. We're right here in Boone County. You're in 5. We're in District 5. But you can call the Voc Rehab number and you can refer anyone.
Yeah.
They'll ask for social security numbers, date of birth, what the disability is, contacts, and then they'll contact them.
And you know, even as an adult, my husband has a friend that was disabled through his job, and he is 51 or 52, and he just got Voc Rehab Services. So I mean, it can be from, you know, our kids transferring or transitioning out of high school to an adult to an elderly to on.
Can you cover everything they provide, all the different services that they provide?
It's a plethora of services today. I will tell you that voc rehab is changing, but it's not changed yet, but it's on the move for a change. If there's a possibility that you think that you have a child that is going to need those services, I would call them tomorrow and say, I want to talk to somebody.
You need to refer them before August 1st.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they want to actually try to get kids younger in something called pre-employment transition services into the schools. So kids like kind of like sophomores, juniors, and seniors, or kids that are still aging out, like
Right.
21.
And see, that's been available all this time,
I know.
and nobody has tapped into it. And that's what kills me, is because we can have kids that are 13, 14 years old tapping into voc rehab while they're in school.
Well, we're in the 3 schools in Good County.
Yeah.
So Zionsville,
Yeah.
And young is 13 or 14.
they want to try to get the kids a little bit younger, and they want to try to work with them while they're in school, like during their resource periods. And they want to try to work on things like softer skills, like eye contact, doing an interview, maybe doing some discovery with them on what they think they might want to do later on. And some of those activities happen after the school day. Like this summer, this whole week this summer, the girl who does pre-eds for our office at the art, she had a group of kids that she took and they did a cooking class, just to learn how to cook and nutrition from IUPUI. And they're like going to the zoo to learn all the different, because somebody had interest in animals. And today it was cars, and there was different jobs, like detailing the cars.
Right.
So it didn't necessarily have to be, it was all the different jobs. So
And it's-
pre-eds is a big thing that VR, that's the whole movement for VR. They want to try to get them a little bit younger and kind of work with them to do some softer skills.
Yeah.
No, it's called pre-eds, pre-ETS, pre-employment transition services.
And I think it's going to be great once everything gets taken a hold of again.
Nobody really knows what it's about.
Right.
And it's all kind of,
And it's going to be one of those things where it's going to have to be marketed out again so
Yeah.
everybody understands it. But absolutely, if you have a child that you think that it's going to use those services, get a hold of them.
and actually the teachers, for us, the teachers trigger what kids we get. So, like, I meet with the teachers like once a month normally.
And that's great.
In those schools. And they'll normally tell me who they think, like as it is now, we just start with seniors and then go down to juniors. And now we should start a little younger to get some of the younger kids.
Yeah. Yes, dear.
My son has Asperger's, and we're in Indianapolis, but he went through the project search, where he worked at the government center, and they did 3 rotations to see what area he worked best in. And he did end up graduating, and they do a graduation. And he did get a full-time job through that. And so I'm not sure, I've worked with parents that have autistic children that did want to know about the project search, but it was they started, I think he applied when he was 16.
Yeah.
And so they don't take in a whole lot because, not every,
Like Zionsville is doing project search this year, I don't know why. Western Boone and London don't really know either.
Yeah, see, I've been doing it for a while.
I don't know, I think for Zionsville, it's transportation, probably.
Thank you very much.
2 kids this year in project search, but really, it's kind of sad because it's kind of,
Yeah. So we know that, that the Rehab Act requires all of this, and then they have the CAP program that provides the information about services under the Rehab and the American Disabilities Act and the Advocacy that's administered by the Indiana Protection Advocacy Services. And this is no longer called IPASS, it is Indiana Disability Rights. So who participates in this planning? It's going to be your student, the family, the transition coordinator, teachers, and related services staff. It's going to be a voc rehab counselor. Some of them you can get into your meetings. It just depends on what's going, what that schedule is. Guidance counselor, a vocational specialist, it can be an adult service provider, and it could be an advocate. If your child is 18 or about to turn 18 and they want an advocate, they're more than welcome to call INSOURCE as well, just like the parents, because whenever those rights transfer under the Article 7, they're considered the parent. The providers can be that voc rehab. It can be the Bureau of Developmental Disabilities, which is the BEADS. It can also be any sort of the Social Security Administration. That can be those community rehab programs, and it can be a community mental health center. So all of these can be providers for them. The transition age, the school, the VR counselor, and the conferences annually, and it will identify the VR if they're eligible, if voc rehab, if they're eligible for that. They will get a written consent generally 1 year prior to that case conference so that they can be there to the exit. So if they're going to graduate, then you're going to try and get that consent 1 year prior to them exiting. You want to try and invite those voc rehab people to those case conferences. It just really depends upon their schedule and if you can get them in there. Yes, dear.
I've never had voc rehab counselors come in.
There are some schools that do. I have one, it's Jody's school now, because we transferred, we moved maps. They come at the end of the school year, and it's like a 2-week process. This man sits in there, and that's all he does. It's amazing. I will tell you that you're talking to a mom that had to scream and holler to have her voc rehab person there. And what really got me was, after they said that they would be there, they didn't even show up. Boy, was I hot. We got them on the phone. We did the conference by phone. Because
You struggle with rehab or?
getting that counselor in there.
Okay, not the school.
Oh, no. School is very obliging because, they knew. But I wanted her in there because there had been some miscommunication between the school and her. And I knew what my son and I had already mapped out that plan. And there had been some misunderstanding and miscommunication, and it was like, no, you will attend so that this is done before his 18th birthday.
Well, VR counselors came into the 3 schools the last 2 years. They came in once a month, and they just did intakes, but they wouldn't sit in on conferences,
Yeah.
no way.
They have a really bizarre schedule, so and there's not enough of them to go around.
I suppose if you called the office and you said, I want somebody in there.
You have to really push that. Yeah. Inform the student of available VR services, and that's what that VR person is supposed to do, is to be able to tell them that. The transition IEP, it starts at age 14. It can start younger, and that's whenever you're going to want to start. Usually it's around that middle school age that you're going to want to start talking to them about that. They're going to take that assessment. Again, we're going to talk about those interests and preferences and their strengths and needs. It has to be in their IEP what that student's transition needs are. Are they going to be on a diploma or certificate of completion? And again, the diploma track will probably be changing. Just, it is the nature of the beast. Get a hold of your representatives. That's all I can tell you. And if it's a certificate of completion, so it really just depends upon what you guys decide upon. Now, I'm going to tell you that when I go to a case conference with a parent, and unless that child is seriously not going to be able to get a diploma, and we know that, then I'll say, okay, yeah, you know that you can take them off of that. But until that last dog is dead, do not take that child off the diploma track. You can always put them back on it, but it's going to be difficult for them because they're going to have to take all of those tests, okay? So do not take them off if there is, don't take them off if you don't have to, okay? It has to have those measurable post-secondary goals. Do not look at that IEP and go, oh, they're going to do those once-a-year surveys, or they're going to do that once-a-year class, or what. No, have a measurable goal in there so that they know what they're moving towards. What are they going to be doing whenever they get ready to get out of high school? Transition services, the student needs to reach those goals. Absolutely, they have to reach those goals. If you have a goal in there written into their IEP that they're going to do, we had a career center. They went to the career center and they had the opportunity to take classes over there. They reached those goals because they took those classes over there. But they have to be measurable goals and they have to reach them, okay? Transfer of rights, again, this is where we're going to talk about the schools to give you written notice regarding that transfer of rights. At the case conference before their 17th birthday, to the student and the parent, they need to give you that information. The written notice is student at age 18. Absolutely, at age 18, you will no longer be receiving anything, it will be them. That's when they can tell you you don't need to be at the case conference. That's whenever they can sign their own IEP. Rights transfer to them at age 18. Just remember that, and just remember it. The educational representative, those educational decisions, the student can request that an educational representative be there to represent them. And that could be somebody from INSOURCE. Again, they could contact us and say, I need that educational representation. But, go ahead.
So do they pay you?
No,
Or you're federally funded?
We do not get paid for any services that we provide to parents.
So
Okay?
any family who wants to have, I would refer them to you to try to get help.
Right. They do not pay us at all. We are completely funded through the United States Department of Education and the Indiana Department of Ed. Okay? Guardianship, those are the legal decisions that you guys need to be talking about, whether they're going to need that guardianship. You will have to have a judge that will come across that. That's why it's so important. If you think you need it now, start the process now. And it's generally for somebody that's unable to make those decisions. You're going to have a SOP. You're going to hear somebody maybe say it's a SOP, it's a summary of performance. That is that written document that the school provides. That will be at the last case conference that you have, and it'll probably be about that thick, okay? Because it will completely summarize the academic achievement, all their functional performances, and it will even give them suggestions and kind of help them to maybe guide the student toward their next steps, okay? And it's going to talk about meeting some goals after high school. You really need to read through that. If you're close to that high school and you're getting out, read that summary of performance before you sign that last IEP, okay? The statewide assessments, these are changing. So it's no longer an ECA, now it's back to the ISTEP for the 10th. Yeah. See, it's changed so much and it's going to change again because it's all whacked out. Anyway, there will always be that end of a course assessment, but it's not going to be called the end of a course of assessment because they have to have that final test to be able to make sure that they can pass that 10th and 12th grade, or 10th and 11th grade, okay? You can always go onto the DOE's website and they will always have that information. But as of right now, they have to take an I-STEP test in 10th grade, and I believe in 11th grade too, okay? The requirements, they're going to change. No longer will there be a general diploma because it, you know what? As of right now, this is changing, okay? So this is, yeah, it's changing. The general diploma is going away because the state will no longer count things on that, but they'll still be able to receive it if they need to. Hang on for more news. The general diploma, again, it's a Core 40 curriculum. If that Core 40 is too difficult, they've been able to use that general diploma, okay? You will always have to have the meeting with your counselor. You'll always have to have that review of progress and career course plan. If you do consider the general diploma, just remember that it's one of those things that, bottom line, it's better than walking out with a certificate. And I say that, and I don't mean it so flippant, but yet, at least they have that diploma, okay? A certificate, if they decided they wanted to go on to college, they don't necessarily have to have it, but you want them to have that diploma. They worked so hard for them to get a diploma. And, you know, so just try the best options that you can. And again, it's one of those things that you have to agree for them to get it. Your SAT and your ACT, you have to apply. If they're going to take these tests, the school has to apply so that they can take their accommodations. So make sure that you get that done there early. Make sure that, well, I just met for a case conference at the end of May, and they were already talking about, okay, we need to make sure he's going to be in 10th grade. We need to make sure that all of his accommodations are sent, because it's not the school that sets those, it's the people that do the SAT and the ACT. They're the ones that say whether or not you can use those accommodations. If for some reason it comes back and says that they can't, they can reapply and ask again. Again, yeah. Start early. I think I can do all that. And all of these are in that folder. There is slides and everything, and these are the two that you can look up for the SAT and the ACT if you need to look that up. They have to register for the selective service. If you're a male, please do that. It doesn't matter, just do it. Don't mess with the government. The rights transfer again to them at 18. They make their own educational decisions, and they may request an educational representative. They may not transfer if there is a guardian that is appointed. They can apply for that Social Security. It may be eligible to apply for benefits in that income. Again, it's one of those things that, you can get it or you can't get it. It really just depends. That transition summary, they're going to prepare to finish school. There is a document, and I did not bring it with me tonight, but it is on our website. It's called Live, Learn, Work, and Play. And it can kind of walk you through just a few other things that maybe weren't covered tonight. When you talk about that transition summary, you remember that there's going to be those self-determination, those preferences, and those interests and their strengths, and start talking to your child now about them, because you're going to want them to contribute to that IEP, not just fill out the surveys that they get at school where their teacher references, what do you like to do? If they do, you like the way we keep hammering home the transfer of rights. If they do take their transfer of rights, they're taking ownership of everything. Make sure that also in that summary that you've talked about the community services, the support for that adult living. How are they going to live on the outside? Oh, that's it. 45 minutes left. Who's got questions? Sure.
Does it depend on the degree of the disability whether a young man can be drafted if we go to war?
That is completely up to your selective services. That is something that is all up to them. I have no idea. Okay, you have to talk to somebody that was in that area. Okay. Yes.
So, colleges in Indiana, the diploma is a big deal. So, I have kids that think they want to go to college, but they've got a certificate of completion. They didn't get they didn't get the general. And so, for me to explain that the idea that you're going to go to IU, because you wanted to go to IU since you were whatever, you lived in Indiana, you're at IU, whatever. So, IU isn't going to take you unless you have at least a general diploma, and then if they take you, you're on a probation period anyway.
Right.
So, there's Urson Green, there's some certificates or things I try to encourage them to do, some different things, but really.
They're very limited.
Right.
And it's very sad because they're not told that, and most parents don't realize that until it's too late.
Right.
That's why it's so important that they have the information. That's why that before you take a child off a diploma track, you really understand what that means. And that's why whenever I have parents that, we'll just take them off the diploma track. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the pros and the cons and what can happen. Because if at all possible, you can leave them on until, the last thing, then do it. Because it's very limited. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't go back and try and get their GED.
Right, to try to go back and get the task or
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
or whatever
But-
they call HSE now.
Yeah, and see, I've never done that, but I've heard that it's really a hard test to take. But I've never done it.
Okay.
Erskine Green, if they can get into that, that's supposed to be really fabulous. We've been up there a couple times. As a matter of fact, we're going back in November, aren't we? Yeah.
And where is that?
It's Muncie.
It's in Muncie and it's.
Oh, the new?
Yeah.
The
Yeah, it's like, it's at the Marriott, it's really nice, and they're adding another class to it too, so it's like the hotel, the restaurant, and the
Hospital, yeah.
So it's hooked up with Ball Memorial, and then it's hooked up with 3 Lions, I guess, and then the Marriott,
Yeah.
and then it's, so they're adding something else.
Yeah, I don't, do you remember what they, I didn't get to go, so.
But it's like 12, it's for like 12 weeks, and you go up there and you stay like in a room with a roommate. And a lot of it can be funded through the rehab.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
majority of the funding.
Right. And I only know about the funding from Broke Rehab because they offered it to my son, and my son's like, oh, I'm going to go for 12 weeks. Oh, darn.
But when they go, they learn how to use, Muncie has that bus system.
Yep.
So they learn how to do some there's different steps, and you can't go out on your own until you complete all these things, which is kind of cool. And then they have passes, and they go to Ball State for like basketball games, and
It's very successful.
yeah, they try to make it like college experience.
Yeah.
It's like they have an RA or a student that goes and, like, when we were there, they would go and knock on the door and say, hey, we're gonna go do this tonight, do you wanna go? And it was in April, so I don't remember if it was volleyball, it was something that they were going, maybe baseball. And it was like, wow, and they make sure that
They
everybody.
pair them up with a student in Ball State, so every kid has a mentor. They work out. It's a cool program.
It is
Yeah.
really awesome.
Yeah, if you have the opportunity,
Go up
that's,
there and just.
you can visit it.
Yeah, you can spend the night. If your kid can, you can stay there too, but they, a little bit.
Right, right.
It's really cool.
Anybody have any other questions? Yes, sir.
You had mentioned, well, why would a parent not want to apply for their child to have Social Security?
You want my honest opinion, and I'll tell you my, well, they don't know me.
Yes, please.
Whenever my son was born and we knew that we had all these problems and stuff, that was the first thing everybody said. You need to get him on Social Security. And it was like, I can take care of him, I can take care of him. And then as I done my research and stuff, it scared me because if I would have put him on that disability, would I have, and see, this is where I really sound like a horrible person, so it's probably going to come out worse than what it sounds like. Would I have given him the permission to not want to go to work? Would I have given him the permission to say, it's okay, you can just sit at home. You're getting money for, to sit at home. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure that every opportunity, but I'm so stubborn too, that every opportunity that I could to make that boy be as normal as possible, I did, because I knew that if he did become an adult and he had to apply for it, then that was a decision that he would have to make. And so that, not that I wouldn't support him in it, but I just didn't want to say, we gave up. And it's not that you give up, and I don't want it to be like that, but I didn't need the income because we were able to take care of him and we had our own insurance and everything. And maybe I should tell you this more than what you really want to know, but when he was born, we ended up being so financially, we had to file bankruptcy because we were $150,000 in debt in doctor bills. And then just, there was no way we were ever coming out of that. And so it was like, I'm not going to give up. I have come too far to give up. And so I was just afraid that if I did it, it would be permission for him to say, okay, I don't have to do anything. I have this income coming in.
It's kind of like a mindset.
Yeah,
And
and
I
it's,
respect you for that, because I have a lot of parents that, don't want their kids to work.
yeah, well,
But they want to work.
and I was afraid I would close the door. And I didn't want to close the door. And I know it sounds probably very horrible that, I just didn't want to close the door, and I was afraid I would. That's really what it comes down to. If he today came and said, I can't work anymore, then absolutely, he's given everything he's given. But I was just afraid. Sorry, that's probably more information you guys really ever want to know about me. But that's why. But if you need it, that money is there for them to do that, because you know, it can provide for if they need any sort of daycare. It can provide, I mean, it can provide for a lot for them, but it just depends upon, it's a very personal decision, I think. Yes?
Along those same lines, this question I'm going to, if you put, say, a younger child on Medicaid rate, is that something that is going to follow them throughout their life? Say, I have a very high functioning child, that you really need those services to make him represent as normal as possible. And I know insurance gets fuzzy and it's changing and all that. Is that going to, like, label him or give him the existing condition or an insurance issue later?
And this is how I try to explain the waiver. When it comes to your insurance and the waiver, insurance is over here in the waiver. Okay. Because you have your health insurance and then you have the waiver. The waiver, let's say they need behavioral support needs. That can be something that the family support waiver, which is what they give out mostly right now. You may have heard what's called the Cadillac waiver, which is the community integration waiver. That is more for emergency situations. If I haven't read, I've been holding it. I've been with it. But that is something that really is, if there's a loss in the family, if something's going on that way, you'll see that happen more on death of the guardian parent. When your family support waiver, it's there to do the support. They can be 40 years old, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds and still have that. But if they're going into school and working, let's say they graduate, they get a job, and they find out they don't need it anymore, they can pick it back up later. You'll have to reapply, but it's not going to label them to have a label. I look at it as that extra assistance spot to help you as the parents, especially right now. And I don't know if everyone agrees with how I look at it. I've had a lot of parents, and actually we have someone we work with very closely, Tammy. Tammy didn't have a family support waiver for a very long time. She has it now, which means she has someone to help her with her child with behavior. She has a behavioral specialist who comes in and literally helps. And she has seen this drastic change. Plus, he leaves every Tuesday night. You know, and for her, that has been that's her Cadillac, honestly, for right now. But it's that extra support things to help you. It could be that you want to have respite, you want to go on vacation, and you can have someone come in to your home, usually it's someone you know, but can provide those respite hours. I don't know who all your service providers are around here, but I know
I actually work hard.
right.
But I also have a son, and we're in that age of, as he grows, if he develops into a fully functioning adult, I don't want him to say, apply for insurance later and then be like, well, you're autistic, you.
It doesn't follow you, it doesn't do anything to your taxes or money. It's
an extra support.
Yeah.
It's like your back pocket. It's that thing in your back pocket that you have.
And it isn't like it's not like they're not gonna give you a check. You have this amount of money and you use that money to buy services. You have somebody help you manage it. And then I always explain it like a pie. So you're figuring out what piece is the behavioral specialist, what piece you might need for respite, and those different pieces come out of that pie. Okay? It doesn't affect your, it doesn't affect your taxes.
And
No one would know,
Right.
no other government agency, it's a separate pot of money from voc rehab, so no one would actually, and trust me, no department really talks to another one.
now people talk to voc rehab, or first steps, but that's honestly, that's pretty much where it goes. Now sometimes Social Security might be in there, but no. And I haven't thought about it as a high, but also look at, let's say that, your son, let's say that your son is 43 years old, has a job, and he works Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, he doesn't have a job, and he's bored at home. That's where that family support waiver could still stay with him, where he could go to an adult day program. And those are not all bad things. There are some really great adult day programs that are so active in the community and taking them everywhere that you want them to be involved because they're learning those extra pieces. They're also doing their social skills. You know, it's no longer high school social skills. It's in community. It's community living and learning all of that. It could be that he wants an apartment on his own. And do you know he could have a camera system on that waiver that could help him have an apartment on his own with 24-hour supervision or 12-hour supervision or someone that comes and checks on him? You know?
We have a client. Yeah, we have a client with a video system in his house.
But it's serious. It's like, what is it? Easter seals. They came to our in-service and we weren't able to get it. And they have this pin, okay, and I tell everybody about this pin. Because my nephew Noah, Colson, sorry, I have two nephews. Noah and Colson. Noah's the brother, but Colson. With Colson not being able to remember things, this pin, he can take it to a college class, high school class, he can take it to an elementary class if they let him have it. Push the record button on this pin with this specialized notebook. He can write notes. If he forgets, like part of the notes, literally, if that pin's been recording, he can touch anywhere on that notepad, and it's going to tell him the exact spot of where the lecture starts, where he might have forgotten something. Like in math, it could be, you have, binomials and polynomials, and then, I don't see him ever taking calculus, but that doesn't mean he can't. But he could do it in the math class, doing the whole steps all the way down. And then he can touch it, and it's going to tell him what he missed, how he didn't solve it correctly. So, technology is becoming so big and so broad that honestly, I've been telling everybody this, and I tell Tammy this all the time, because she doesn't think maybe he'll ever go to college. And I said, don't you ever say no, because he's not 18 yet, and he's not 22. And you don't know what technology is going to be down the road that would be advancements. So, family support waiver, book rehab, they can all work together for those things. Especially book rehab. Amy, I don't think that portion will change in what they add for service. Did I?
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Any more waiver questions?
Did we totally confuse you?
We didn't mean to.
Darn.
Okay, quick question.
Sure.
What's the average time frame for waivers right now? Like,
Now, because we're changing offices, I haven't been able to hear the latest update. But what I did know before, it was December 2016. So it's much smaller. And I look for it to even be smaller to where they're going to have none left.
Yeah, they're really.
They have flown. When I started in January of 2016, it was like a year out. And it might even be even shorter now. But I would literally hear them go, oh, well, it's, we're in, maybe it was December of 2014. And now we're into March, of 2015. And that's how they characterize it.
I would say the last person I'd like 5. Like I help like 25 people a year in the waiver.
Now, if you have a senior, they move to the top of the
Yes.
list.
But go ahead and do it now.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to.
My family's right now are reporting 6 to 9 months for young kids.
It took us 12 years. And by then it was like, forget it. I don't need it.
And the target is when you come off the list, it's literally you get a letter. And this is the other thing. You will receive a letter that says, that you've been targeted. You have to make sure that even in the time frame, like if you move 3 months after you filled out the waiver, the B's office has to know your new address. If you filled that waiver application out 12 years ago and you've moved 4 times, you got to make sure they know your current address because they're going to send it to the address that's on the waiver. so that you first initially fill it out.
And there's always a waitlist portal where you can go online,
Yes.
you can fill it out yourself.
Yes.
So it's real easy to change.
You can
right?
print it too,
Yep.
and do it that way. You can walk it to, if you know where your B's office is, you can walk it in. I have no problem helping someone fill out the waiver, and I have literally walked it to the secretary's desk in the B's office. And I have said, I want confirmation that this has been turned in. You know, just because I want them to know. So I always follow, usually I'll ask that person for email, and if I don't, I'll call them and say, I've turned it in, they've acknowledged it, you're getting this letter, because I personally asked them to fill this out for me. And you will see the difference in the targeting. And when you get targeted, then you'll have someone come in, usually to your home, so don't freak out if they say they're coming to your home. It's kind of like an interview, but it's not like an interview the way you think an interview is. It's going through everything.
They'll want your IEPs.
Yes. And make sure, if you don't already keep a binder of your IEPs, keep a binder of all the information you get from the schools.
Do we need to
from
have that
doctors,
conversation?
If you don't, I'm sure all of you do, but I really try to remind everybody, just make sure you have that at all meetings that we go to.
Please don't throw away your IEPs. I can't tell you how many parents I've called me and I say, where's your IEP? And they'll go, I threw it away. And I'm like, go get it.
She does, by the way.
Yeah.
She does.
Keep a home file. I mean, and I had a 4-drawer filing cabinet. And I just went through that not too long ago and went, oh, I'm going to have to throw all these things away. But you'll want to just keep all that stuff so that you know where it's at, because if you're going to need it to fill out those information, that waivers and stuff. And you may need it for Social Security too.
Yes. And something that Amy, our coworker, she's in Southern Indiana. She keeps that whole big binder, file cabinet. And then what she does, she has one of those plastic folders, I don't know if you've seen them, that have like the band that you can put around it. She puts the current year in there.
Yeah.
That's all. Medical, everything that goes for that year goes in that. So then she has it for every case conference. She has it for everything. So if they ask for something, doctor's name, doctor's statement, she can just go, here you go. And she says that's really helped.
Well, and see, that's kind of what we did, because my husband was gone so much, and I was always afraid that if something happened, he wouldn't know where to go. So we always kept the current year, and I would always redo all of those things, and keep it in front so that he knew all he had to do was go in there and grab that file, and to make a couple phone calls, and everything would be taken care of. But you have to have it all right there so you can have that information. Because honestly, you don't know when you may need it at a moment's notice. You really don't.
And something, I don't know if Jill does this, but I do this in my case conferences. When the school's like, oh, well, they're going to know what this means in the notes, and they're going to know what this means in the goal, I always say, what happens if this whole school gets wiped out tomorrow and there's 3 people over here and a new teacher?
Yeah.
And that teacher has no clue what that IEP means, unless everything is written in it.
Yeah.
And that's how I've explained it. Or you end up with 10 new teachers for some reason, okay? That is something that I always tell my parents, that's how you know your IEP. If the school is saying, oh, we don't have to put it all in. That's one way to say, okay, so if everything changes tomorrow and we have new teachers and a new administrator and a new director, are they going to know what this means?
Every
And that's
IEP
changed a
should
lot.
be able to be picked up and transferred by anybody. I should be able to pick up your IEP and know exactly what's going on. And I'm not a teacher. I'm not an administrator.
And if you're saying, those notes that thing what I talked about specifically asked to be in the notes isn't there, then you go back and you say, this specifically is not in the notes, and I want every single thing we talked about in the notes. You can do that.
And
Don't be afraid.
that's one good thing about whenever you, if you would take, I'm not trying to drum up business by no stretch of the imagination, but if you take somebody with you, you can take me, you can take a friend, you can take, your parents, somebody. They can take notes for you, and before you leave that case conference, you can have those notes read back to you. You can, kind of compare so that okay, this is what I heard. Because there's a lot of times I've been in case conferences and go, wait a minute, what I think I heard you say was, and then, so for clarification, okay? Yes.
So is there somebody for Boone County for INSOURCE? You are Boone County. Jill is Boone County.
And
Yes.
Jill takes her laptop, I've been in meetings with her and she's typing things.
Okay.
And before she's done, that's what she says. Is this everything? I mean, and she'll go over every single point.
I usually like to talk to my parents before I go to the case conference, because I like to kind of have an agenda. If you called and said, I'm going to have a case conference, and I said, well, what are we going to talk about? Why are we reconvening? Well, I want to do this and this and this and this. Well, I've probably already started the bullets on what we're going to talk about. And before you and I get off the phone, I'll probably say, this is what I understood that you're going to want to clear. And before we leave that case conference, I'm going to probably look at you and go, hey, we didn't talk about this. Did you still want to talk about it? Yes. Well, we need to bring it up. Okay? Yes.
So sorry.
No.
Do you go to the Boone, do you go to like the Zionsville Transition Fair?
This will be the first, well, see, I've just taken this area back. I haven't had it for 5 years.
Okay.
But yes, I used to go there. Yes, yes. Yeah, because it went from Zionsville to Brownsburg and Brownsburg to Zionsville.
Yeah, it all switched
Yeah.
around. Yeah, they
Yeah.
just kind of rotated.
And we were at Brownsburg this year,
Okay.
so I'm assuming we're going to Zionsville next year.
Zionsville.